It's a story that was broken last night, or was reported last night, by Caroline Wilson on Channel 7. Let's go to the videotape on what Cara had to say last night and what she had to say tonight.
Paul Little, the former chairman of the Essendon Football Club and very generous benefactor of the Essendon Football Club, who was there as chairman during 2013, 14 and 15, those acrimonious days, has not ruled out, in fact has left the door very much open to a return to the Essendon board, a return that in my view would include James Hird as coach. My belief is that James Hird still harbours an ambition to coach Essendon. I am absolutely convinced of that. I make no comment about it, but I'm convinced he still harbours that ambition. I did not say that James Hird and Paul Little are planning together a comeback to Essendon.
Well, there you go. I don't think Simone Biles could do a backflip like that one. And just in case anyone last night wasn't quite sure what Caroline was saying, here's what Kane Cornes had to say straight afterwards.
To have this happen again with these people behind the scenes who are selfish. That's what they are. They're selfish. They are selfish to want to... You've had your time. And there's some assistants out there been fighting for 20 years to try and get a job. So just to rock up and go, OK, I'm James Hird, after 10 years I put my hand back up.
You're saying that Little's selfish or potentially Hird?
Yeah, well, both. If James Hird's putting his hand up behind the scenes to want to coach this team, I think it's the wrong move.
OK, first up, Tom Morris, you spoke to Paul Little today. What do you have to say?
Yeah, he made it pretty clear, Paul Little, when I spoke to him. He has no appetite to take over David Barham, to overthrow the board in any way. He's also only trying to help insofar as to help players or people at the club with business ventures and offer a lending support, given he's a very successful person away from football as well. He's not trying to take over the board. He was at pains to make that very clear. And he believed the way that Cara reported it probably didn't paint him in an accurate light. OK. Let's be serious about this, though, James, because there has been enough rumblings over a period of time of Adrian Dodoro, of Kevin Sheedy, and also of Paul Little and yourself. Now, you applied for the job that Brad received, the nod at Essendon, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
OK. Why did you want to do that?
Oh, I thought it was a good opportunity to go back and help the club, and I thought it was the right time, but obviously it wasn't. The best man got the job. OK. Now,
that story last night, is there a scintilla of truth? Have you spoken at any stage to Paul Little about mounting a campaign to, one, either join the board, roll the board, or be the coach of the Essendon Football Club?
No, I have not.
Have you got any intentions of being the coach of the Essendon Football Club going forward?
Not at all.
Right, so we're on here on the record. Not at all.
Not at all.
Hirdy, what about coaching other clubs? Do you want to coach football again at the AFL level?
No, I don't. Look, I've got a business that is taking a lot of my time, and it's actually quite concerning when reports like that come on air. I get calls all day today from my investors saying, what are you doing? Why are you entertaining this? So it damages my business. I haven't got ambitions. I'm loving what I'm doing with my son down at Port Melbourne, and that's the extent of it.
Pretty categoric.
Right. Can I ask you, in this situation, when you saw Kane Cornes go after you as he did last night, and Caroline Wilson by implication there, do you feel, do you get triggered from things that have happened in the past? Do you think that they're going to let you go? They're going to let you have another turn, or are you going to bob up every time there's a story at Essendon? Are you the black and red herring at the Essendon Football Club?
I'm not sure about I'm black and red herring, but look, it's a little bit concerning that every time there's a story that I'm the one that's focused. I don't want to coach Essendon, but in terms of Kane Cornes, I don't know Kane, he doesn't know me, it's water off a duck's back to me. Whether he calls me selfish or not, he has no idea what my life is about and what I want to do, and so it doesn't really worry me at all.
How did you find out last night that this was going to air?
Well, you text me, Ed. I got home from training, Port Melbourne, and I sat on the couch and I turned on the TV and there was my name, and I'm like, the sound was down. I thought, what the hell's that? But then you text me and I went, I better have a look at this. So, look, it's a story. It'll blow over. Brad Scott is the best man for a job at the Essendon Football Club, and I, for one, support him. So I would rather people just focus on helping Brad and the Essendon Football Club get better.
One final one. Would you like to come back to the Bombers in any way, shape or form? I don't mean full-time, but just feel a bit closer to the club?
I do feel close to the club. I mean, you know, I get calls from players who want just a conversation about things. I watch the Bombers all the time. I do feel close. If there's a role in any way to help the football club, I do it. But you know, you've also got to give people a clear air to do their job as well as they can.
Brad, you were at dinner last night with the AFL, I believe. I understand your phone exploded in between courses. What happened?
Oh yeah, I mean it's you know, a lot of people were asking what was happening, and clearly the club were put in a position where they've got to respond to these sorts of things. But I think it's you know, clearly it's a story. People have great interest in it, but you know, I think from my perspective, James didn't ask for any of this. I mean, James hasn't spoken about this, so you know, I think it's an opinion piece. It's someone, I would find it very hard in James's position to have to answer questions as to what other people think he is going to do when he hasn't said anything. So I think he's been very clear and categoric tonight as to what his intentions are, and he's an Essendon legend and will always be welcome at the Essendon Football Club, and he's made his intentions very clear tonight.
Brad, do you feel like people outside the club, currently not employed by the club, are trying to destabilise the club?
Not in any way, shape or form. I did have my... I had questions when I was approached to apply for the position and go through the process, and all those questions were answered to my satisfaction, and I haven't seen any indication of anything but stability.
What questions did you have?
Club. Well, the questions around outside factors and people who have influence over and above the people who are charged with the responsibility of running the football club, and that's just due diligence. You know, I wanted to make sure that I was well aware of what I was getting into before I entered into the process. And since being appointed, I've had nothing but support from all areas of the football club. The supporter base, the board. We've got an outstanding CEO. We've got a president who is as invested in the football club as anyone. And we've got other people like Paul Little who love the club. And one of the strengths of Essendon is that there are so many people who love the club and want to help the club. And you know, people will always talk and make, I suppose, accusations. But as I said, James has made his intentions very clear here tonight.
Brad, it was a lumpy start though, because Kevin Chitty was on the board and he was championing James's cause. And then forever in recent time, well not recent, forever, for a long time, the coteries at Essendon seem to have an over-the-top, one, pipeline to the media, and two, sense of importance. It's important to have coteries because that's what football clubs are about. But you've got to be, the board has to run the club. So you're confident now that those days are behind, that your reappointment, that David Barham's reappointment at the ballot box has got you both through to 2027, that you've got where you want to be to take this club forward.
Oh, there's no question about that. It's there's a rock-solid board. There are people who are really passionate about the club. And, you know, as Lee Matthews once said to me, that you've got to put the right people in the positions and let them do it. And I've had great support and nothing but support and have been allowed to do my job. And so, you know, I hear all the stuff like everyone else, but, you know, I've had nothing but support from Dave Barham, from Craig Vozzo, a really supportive board and a really supportive supporter base. And I'm loving my time at Essendon. I'm loving coaching this group of players. We've got a fantastic group. We took a step back on the weekend, which is obvious to everyone, but we've taken a lot of steps forward this year and the last couple of years. But we're well aware we've got a long way to go, and you know, I think that stability and alignment that Dave Barham talks about all the time is critical for any football club, and you know that's really what I've had at Essendon.
So, is there an upside out of the downside of the last 24 hours that you've actually been able to catch up with Hirdy today, face to face? You've sat there, you've heard him say straight down the barrel what his intentions are. Do you actually go, well, that's good, I always thought that, but now I know it?
Yeah, well, I think you can run away from these things and ignore it. And I agree with Hirdy, a lot of it is water off a duck's back, but every now and then I think you need to be categoric and clear with the direction that you're going in and nip it in the bud so everyone knows what's going on and you know, stop the rumour and innuendo.
All right, we're going to stop the conversation. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to have a chat to you about dinner last night with the AFL. Get to part two of the story right after this. Welcome back to Footy Classified. We're going to talk about the AFL dinner with the coaches last night. Tom, you can give us a little bit of colour around it. It's not the first time.
No, it's not the first time. So Gil McLachlan became quite famous, actually, for having all the coaches round at once. I'm sure you went to it a few times. I'm sure you went to it as well, Hirdy. The way Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane...
No, maybe not.
I wasn't invited to the AFL. There was 17 coaches invited to that.
Probably fair enough. Invite lost in the mail. But what Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane and Dan Richardson, who is the conduit between the AFL and the coaches, are doing is having smaller meetings. So 2 weeks ago in South Melbourne at a pub, they caught up with Sam Mitchell and Adam Uze and Luke Beveridge. And this is last night in Fitzroy with the Scott brothers, Simon Goodwin and Alistair Clarkson. Craig McRae was invited for personal reasons. He declined, but he's expected to go to the next one, which will also include Ross Lyon and Michael Voss. So, and then don't forget the non-Victorian coaches. Andrew Dillon and the AFL will go around Australia to meet with them as well.
All right, now, Brad, the first question I'm going to ask you is, I understand it was steak night last night. And, your steak night, you get a bit cheaper and all the rest of it, but you went off menu and just had your own a la carte, is that right? And went top shelf, is it?
Yeah, I think there was a special AFL menu, but it was top shelf.
Yeah.
So what did you have?
The lamb shoulder for us. Slow cooked. Yeah, spot on.
Does that get included in the soft cap, your extra?
Yeah, well, I did ask that question.
Right,
Who's
okay.
paying for this?
Yeah, well, Brad, can I ask you about the soft cap and the finances in the game? Because the collective bargaining agreement and, the pay deal for the TV has never been so lucrative. But the money hasn't yet filtered to the football departments. Was that discussed last night, and how strong was that conversation?
Yeah, it was discussed. Look, let me start by saying it was the most productive meeting I can remember having with the AFL. I think the smaller groups make a lot of sense. All the coaches get to have their say, and to be able to talk to Andrew in particular, but Laura Kane as well. To talk about those issues is really important. The soft cap was on the agenda, and we just have genuine concerns that we hear the game's in rude health all the time, and it is. But the AFL are prioritising spend in different buckets, and it seems that football departments are pretty low on that stack. And we pride ourselves on the support we can put around our players, and it's proving incredibly difficult at the moment with the resources that we've got.
When I started coaching, Brad, there was no soft cap. When I ended, there was a soft cap, and I found it increasingly frustrating to work out what was in and what was out. What's the biggest change you would want to make to that soft cap?
I think that the number one change that I would make is to remove all the deductions and it's a really complex formula that goes. It's not just a bucket of money, and I would allow the football clubs to spend the money as they see fit.
Well, that's your competitive advantage, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. I mean, if we decide that 3 assistant coaches is more important than one, or we want to beef up our medical staff, or we want to beef up our high performance staff, I think that should be our choice. We shouldn't be dictated to as to how we spend that.
Well, I was for a long time saying that the AFL, who collectively pull in all the money, the television money, more and more the sponsorship money, that the first thing that they should do is fully fund the salary cap and now fully fund the soft cap for the coaches. That's what you need to run a football competition. Before you go doing anything else, run the football competition to the specifics that we can actually have the best possible game because the players are prepared in the best possible way. Now, one of the things that was talked about, I believe, last night, Brad, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but is the Indigenous pathways. Everyone's worried about it. Now, I think everyone's heading down the wrong path, pardon the pun, in that people don't take into effect how big an impact COVID had to just isolating particularly Indigenous players wherever they are around the country. It was bad enough for kids living in Melbourne going to private schools with everything they could have, and you've got 3 of your players who were drafted out of that situation. How much where do you think we need to go to with the Indigenous? Because you've studied this pretty hard when you worked at the AFL.
Yeah.
What do we need to do so that it doesn't become a cliche about straight up racism? That there's more to it. It's a lot more nuanced than anyone wants to give it credit for.
Yeah, I think, look, it's appropriate we talk about it, especially with Dreamtime at the G this Friday night, and hopefully a crowd of 80+ thousand at the game to celebrate the incredible impact that Indigenous players have had on our game. And our numbers are declining, and we've just got to work as an industry to try and arrest that decline. And Essendon put forward quite a number of proposals to try and increase the number of Indigenous players and the representation of Indigenous players across the competition. But really, it's the investment in the pathway. We've got one of the greatest assets in talent pathways, which is the Coates League. And I'd like to see more of an investment in that league to try and foster an environment where we can have young Indigenous boys and girls come through that pathway, because the club's responsibility ultimately is to recruit the talent. I don't think it's the club's responsibility to develop the talent. That falls to the talent pathway, and the AFL have got to take responsibility for that.
Hirdy, can I just show you? You're coaching. You're involved at Port Melbourne. Is that a pathway we should be bringing maybe some kids through more, and particularly the Indigenous kids coming through, because it does take a lot to get anybody to to leave home to go to a football club. Is there a way we should be doing that using the VFL, Sandford, Waffle, more beneficial as a production line into the AFL?
Absolutely. I don't think the VFL or the Sandford, I can't speak to the Sandford or Waffle, but the VFL gets used enough as a pathway. I think it's still a competition that doesn't get used well enough. The resources just aren't there to resource that well enough. I just want to ask you, Brad, on the lack of confidence in the AFL last week in the media outlets everyone talking about, is that seen by the coaches or the clubs that there is a loss of confidence in the AFL over the past month, or has that been exaggerated by shows not like ours but all the other ones?
I think it's definitely been exaggerated. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for Andrew Dillon. I think he's an exceptional administrator, incredibly smart guy, and the AFL's in good hands with him running the competition. But there's no doubt he needs support. And it's a really tough job, and Laura Kane's a very good administrator too, but she needs support as well. And my view in that role is that more help is better. So there's definitely not a lack of confidence in headquarters, but there probably has been some missteps along the way, which is always going to happen with a new administration. And a lot of the topic last night of discussion was how can football clubs and coaches and football departments help? Because I think if we collaborate on a lot of these issues, we'll get a better end result.
Can I ask you about one of the things that coaches have been very strong on? I don't know what percentage of coaches are against the sub-rule, but I know it was a conversation last night. It has been a conversation across the journey. How willing is the AFL to listen to abolishing something which, in many respects, is largely unpopular?
Oh, they're happy to listen. We had would I describe it as a vigorous debate? I think the majority of coaches, we did just a basic poll with the senior coaches, and I think it was roughly 13 or 14 coaches would like to just go to 5 on the bench.
What would you like?
I'd like 5 on the bench.
Yep. So why are they saying no?
The view is that if there are injuries in game, that it can affect the outcome of the game in terms of the result. So, if one team has 2 injuries, the sub mitigates that loss of injury somewhat because the other team can't out-rotate you. But with an interchange cap now, I don't think that happens. But that debate will continue. I don't think it's going to change in the short term, but I think it's a debate worth having because I know, speaking for the players, certainly the players that I coach, no one enjoys being the substitute.
Just quickly, personally, AFL coach or AFL executive? What do you enjoy more?
Oh, I love both. I mean, I really love my role at the AFL, but really felt like the role at the AFL is a role that you take in service to the game. It's a thankless task at times, but the pull to get back into coaching was really about doing what I love, which is developing players, and not just young players, developing older players as well, and watching them grow and develop, not just as footballers but as people.
You used to make the rules. Now you have to abide by them. If there's one you could change.
Oh, it's probably the sub rule. Yeah.
Fair enough.
How about the father-son rule?
It depends if you've got a father-son coming through your club or not.
Exactly.
Nick Dacos, I think, if he was coming through, we'd take that one.
Yeah, take that one. Good on you, fellas. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have a coach off next. Oh. It's Hirdy and Brad over by the screen as we have a good look at not only the Dogs and last week's game against the Bombers, but the Cats as well. It's going to be a beauty. The Cats and Dogs going head-to-head. That's next.
Was it 82,000 versus Collingwood on a Saturday night at the G? How good's that?
It's beautiful, mate. Not getting that at Ballarat, so.
I mean, it's nice to know, we're still on Bailey's mind. He's still thinking about us, even at another team. And there's probably a few less people down in Ballarat for him to flip the bird to. It makes round 11 even more interesting, which I think we'll all be looking forward to.
Good news is it's your home ground, not at Ballarat. Are you looking forward to this one?
Even Marvel, mate, with all the Dogs fans there. So, it'll be good fun. So, I'm excited for the challenge. I live for that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's just going to be the best fun. So, regardless how it goes, I just can't wait to get back out there.
No interview from Bailey Smith in the lead-up, but plenty of shenanigans. You were down at the Cattery yesterday, and today he was talking to everybody but not talking to anybody. But the understanding, though, is, Tom, is that the Dogs are genuinely filthy. Yeah,
they were genuinely filthy when Bailey Smith made those initial comments at the MCG. And although that has subsided somewhat, this rivalry is real. Like, the Dogs annoyed at Bailey Smith, and the Cats will stick up for Bailey Smith. This is on. This is going to be spicy tomorrow night.
They've got to send Tom Liberatore to
hopefully they do.
Bounce, don't they?
Yes, they
just for
to.
A bit of spice.
Yeah.
All right, let's get set for Coach's Corner.
25 minutes to make a name for yourself.
Yes, thank you, Ed. In one of the most anticipated games of the year, the Bulldogs take on the Cats down at the Cattery. Brad, we unfortunately going to show some of the footage from the weekend, but we want you to analyse the Bulldogs as though you were how the Bulldogs beat Geelong. Bulldogs handball, or how Geelong beat the Bulldogs. Sorry, Bulldogs handball is exceptional, and they're really hard to stop. Their elite hands are incredible.
Yeah, they're as good as any team in the competition at the moment with the ball in tight. You can see the congestion in screen there, the ability for them to absorb our pressure, get the ball out into space, and our tackling efficiency was poor, but that was in large part due to their ability to break tackles. So it's going to be a great contest in close, and the Bulldogs are exceptional at it.
And they tend to hold the ball in more, don't they? Sorry, release the ball, whereas other teams hold it in more. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, most teams are trying to keep the ball contained, but the Bulldogs are so elite with their hands that they're happy to flick the ball around, and that can invite a little bit of pressure, and that's why our pressure numbers look pretty good, because we could get there to pressure, but we just weren't able to strip the ball, and they were so good at getting the ball to their teammates. And once they won it inside, flick the ball around, once they got it to the outside, it was a real challenge for us.
The other thing they're really good at without their elite talls is their elite smalls. I mean, they've just been fantastic at ground level, kicking a lot of goals. This is a challenge for the Bombers. I mean, how would you handle this if you're Geelong?
Yeah, I think Geelong will play their standard structure. I mean, probably the competition thought with the form Sam Darcy was in that they'd struggle a little bit losing a player of that calibre. But you see Vandermeer here, Riley West was fantastic. So their smalls are playing a great brand at the moment in terms of their ability overhead's really solid, but they're really good at ground level as well. So, sometimes, obviously, they'd love Darcy playing, but they've been able to step up with their mid-size and small forwards.
Would you change your back six for Geelong because of the smalls, or would you keep your back six the same if you're the Cats?
I think the Cats have got a back six that are flexible enough to take talls and smalls. They've got a number of players who are, have got good size and they're good overhead, but they're capable of playing on the smaller players. So I suspect they'll play their standard structure. Their
biggest weapon is Marcus Bontempelli, 24 and 2. It felt like he did a pretty good job on him, but he still ends up with 24 and 2. How do the Cats stop Marcus?
Well, I think this is probably the biggest challenge in the game right at the moment. I spoke post our game that we thought Will Setterfield did a really good job. Bont has it 24 times, kicked 2 goals and has 10 score involvements. So that just speaks to how highly we rate him, that we thought that was a pretty good job. But no, he's an exceptional player, and I think it'll be, pity Dangerfield's not there. It'd be great to see them going head to head.
Would you put Bontempelli on Smith? I mean, how would you handle that?
Well, as a fan, I'd love to see it. But yeah, I think the thing with Bontempelli is it's hard just to take him because he's so flexible. He can play forward, he can play mid, he can move around the ground. Basically, wherever the Bulldogs need him, he can go. And if they need to score, they can push him forward. So, he's clearly if he's not the best player in the competition at the moment, he's very close to it.
Absolutely. The other thing Geelong love to do it down at the Cattery is roll a winger back or create a 7. That releases a half back for the Bulldogs. Obviously, Bailey Dale had 49 possessions. Do you think the Cats will do the same thing or keep an even numbers ahead of the ball?
I wouldn't advise them to do the same thing we did. No, look, I mean, you can see the vision here. I mean, Bailey Dale's ability to double up, and some people criticised his lack of contested possession, but he was really influential throughout the whole night. And if the Bulldogs, you want the ball in Bailey Dale's hands. So, I suspect it'll be a battle of whether Geelong push a forward up and release Dale. But I mean, the strategy I would suspect would be just never let Dale free.
Yeah.
So I think Geelong will still play their standard structure, but someone will have a responsibility for him.
The game within the game, where they get the spare and where they create the spare, is a very interesting one with these two teams.
Yeah, it is, and I think the Bulldogs probably prefer even numbers compared to Geelong like to have uneven numbers. So it'll be the battle of wills there. What can you get? So Geelong do like to roll the winger back at times, and the Bulldogs like to roll their winger forward. So going to be a fascinating battle.
Who wins for you?
I think the fact that it's at Geelong probably has it in Geelong's favour, but Bulldogs are clearly the form team of the competition in my eye at the moment.
Well, Ed, Bulldogs for me, the hottest team in the competition, is going to be one of the games of the season. Can't wait to see the result. Over to you.
Thanks, boys. That was fantastic. Good on you, Brad. We really appreciate you going up to the board for us, and Hirdy, as always, insightful.